Welcome to Mapping and History. Today on Rethinking History, we will be talking about what makes a Han. Stay tuned to hear our big question of the day at the end of the video. China today is the country on Earth with the largest population with 1.4 billion citizens. It is also home to many different tribes and cultures, from the Tibetans in the southwest to the Manchus in the northeastern provinces. Of all the many tribes living in China, the one that we label as Chinese, the one that has the greatest global reach, is that of the Han race, also known as the Huaxia. Now, what is the Han Chinese? The ethnonym that unites over 90% of China's population, and where did they originate? The Han Chinese today is one of the strongest and oldest cultural identities that have survived the test of time. So, where did it all begin, and what makes a Han and not, say, a Tujia? This question takes us back to the 3rd millennium BC, before any dynastic rule in China. The oldest civilizations around the world developed along rivers. So it was the same with China. Some ancient Chinese cultures from this time period include the Yangshao culture and the Longshan culture, which sprung up along the Yellow River. Indeed, the Yellow River would be the nexus for our Chinese civilization for the next 1,000 years, and dynastic states like the Shang and the Zhou would arise, with the surrounding political states acknowledging them as their overlords. At this stage, while there were many political entities along the Yellow River, there was an acknowledgement of a centralized government that was being developed. The states along the Yellow River had common customs, either as a result of developing out of the preceding Chinese cultures or having been heavily influenced by them. Even at this nascent stage of Chinese civilization, the people had an understanding of belonging to one single cultural identity, the Huaxia. In dealing with the development of the Han Chinese cultural identity, we also need to deal with the other, the barbarians. The barbarians were peoples who lived to the north, south, east, and west of the Huaxia who did not identify themselves as Huaxia, though some of these tribal identities had a similar ethnogenesis as the Han Chinese. The barbarians were involved in the politics of the Han Chinese from the very beginning, with apocryphal wars between mythical Chinese heroes like Huang Di and the barbarous Chi You. However, these barbarians were not a singular unified identity, other than the fact that they were not of the Huaxia, would come to play a more major role in Chinese history. King You of Zhou was killed when the Western Rong, tribes living to the west of the North China Plain, invaded in 771 BC. Before this incident, the Chinese states living at the frontier of Chinese culture were subject to raids. But this event marked a pivotal moment in Chinese history: the need to protect the Han Chinese civilization from the barbarian threat, which further solidified Han Chinese cultural identity. By the time of the autumn and spring period, the states of the Zhou dynasty had expanded beyond the Yellow River and the North China Plain. Yan was pushing north into the Liaodong Peninsula, Qin was pushing west into the territory of the infamous Xirong, and in fact had subjugated and assimilated many Xirong tribes. Chu was expanding into the Yangtze River Valley and was assimilating the peoples of the south. Han Chinese culture was expanding outwards. Yet, the Zhou state, the nominal power over these Han Chinese states, was on its last legs. The government had become increasingly decentralized, and the states and dukedoms now held most of the power. Qin and Chu were becoming especially powerful due to aggressive expansion into the fertile Yangtze River Valley. And while they were culturally still Han Chinese, they were seen as one step away from being a barbarian. Towards the end of the Zhou dynasty, chaos reigned, and one state would rise up to restore political order and set up a singular unified state. In 316 BC, Qin would invade the states of Shu and Pa, who were culturally distinct from the Huaxia. Due to their control over the highly fertile Sichuan Basin and subjugation of the Pa and Shu peoples, Qin grew in military might and eventually conquered all the other Chinese states, setting up the Qin dynasty. The Han Chinese cultural identity was firmly established by then, and there was now a singular Han Chinese state. The Great Wall was erected during this time to protect the unified Chinese states from northern invaders. Later dynasties, such as the Han and the Tang, would expand into the barbarians' territories, making China a multi-ethnic empire, yet mostly populated by the Han Chinese and those that were assimilated. When the Mongols and Manchus invaded and ruled China, they were viewed as barbarians who took over a civilized society, for the simple fact that they were culturally distinct from the Han Chinese. The cultural differences between the Han Chinese and non-Han Chinese rulers were tenuous. Even today, the relationship between the Han Chinese and non-Han Chinese peoples can be just as complicated. China today is made up of many different ethnic groups, and while many tribes have come to live peacefully with the Han Chinese, there are many other people groups who have an uneasy tension with the Han Chinese. The cries for Tibet and Xinjiang to separate arise from this idea of being culturally distinct from the Han Chinese majority. This brings us to the question of the day. So what makes the Han Chinese a Han Chinese? In other words, what defines a cultural identity? Is cultural identity something that is clearly defined, where people come from one common stock, or is cultural identity something more fluid, something that changes over time due to factors like assimilation or cultural colonization? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. We hope that you have enjoyed our video on what makes a Han. We appreciate your support. Click the link to our Patreon page to find out more on how you can support us.